government in intelligence, vigilance, and trust building with law enforcement.
Nigeria challenges in security are multi-dimensional. But despite this aggravation, but conscious of our own mandate, we rest assured that the armed forces of Nigeria will continue to execute assigned tasks in accordance with the rule of law, especially human rights and international humanitarian law.
They get them arrested initially, and maybe by the time they take them to court, some technicalities in the law will free these same people. And by then they have known that these are the people that have pointed fingers at me and others. That means it makes the communities and their leaders more vulnerable and more insecure.
Governor Hyacinth Alia called the summit timely, citing security challenges in Benue and urging judicial reforms, and expressed hope for lasting solutions.
I am confident that we will not only diagnose our problems, but prescribe practical, implementable solutions that will transform the security landscape of North Central Nigeria for generations that follow.
Under the theme Strengthening Security, Rule of Law and Justice Delivery in North Central Nigeria, the three-day summit convened by legal experts, government officials, security personnel, and civil society leaders from across the region.
The Nigerian Medical Association has issued a fresh ultimatum to the federal government following extensive deliberations from an emergency delegate meeting of the Doctors Association, which unanimously condemned what it described as the federal government's poor handling of their welfare and the persistent lack of commitment to resolving key issues affecting medical professionals. The group says the 21-day notice of a total and indefinite strike beginning on July 27 will continue unless their demands are comprehensively addressed. Despite the warning, the group says it remains hopeful that the government will prioritize the health needs of Nigerians and the welfare of doctors, many of whom continue to work under difficult economic and workplace. The former All Nigerian People's Party, ANPP, has called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to ensure that the vice presidential seat is made sacrosanct for the ANPP bloc within the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, ahead of the 2027 presidential election. The coordinator of the party, Vitalis Ajumbe, made the call while addressing journalists in Abuja. Kikelomo Okere has the details.
The All Nigerian People's Party, which is now a major bloc within the ruling All Progressive Congress (APC), is calling on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to ensure that the vice presidential slot is reserved for the ANPP bloc when the party fields its candidate for the 2027 presidential election. The coordinator of the party, Vitalis Ajumbe, emphasized that the move will reaffirm the significance of political inclusion and uphold the spirit of equity and power sharing within the APC coalition.
Vice presidential seat. The Association of the former NPP members hereby calls on our president, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to ensure that the vice presidential seat is made sacrosanct.
He added that preserving the vice presidents for the ANPP bloc will not only strengthen internal democracy, but also maintain balance among the party's legacy group. The ANPP is one of the three legacy parties that merged to form the APC in 2013. With political realignment already taking shape across the country, this latest demand is expected to stir fresh conversation within the ruling party. Kikelomo Okere, Global Television News.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has hosted a post-election follow-up and needs assessment mission from the Economic Community of West African States Network of Electoral Commissions, ECONEC, in Abuja. The mission seeks to evaluate Nigeria's implementation of recommendations from the 2023 general elections. Anita Patrick reports.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, received a delegation from the Economic Community of West African States Network of Electoral Commissions, ECONEC, on a post-election follow-up mission in Abuja. Led by the head of Liberia's National Elections Commission, Devita Brownie Lassana, the Ghanaian's Deputy Electoral Commissioner, Dr. Bosman Asare, the team is in Nigeria to assess progress made on recommendations issued after the 2023 general elections. Professor Yakubu says ECOWAS made 37 recommendations, 13 addressed to INEC and 24 directed at other stakeholders, including the National Assembly, the Nigerian police, civil society organizations, and media regulators. He confirmed that Independent National Electoral Commission had acted on all recommendations within its administrative capacity while awaiting legislative action on others.
Of these recommendations, 13 are addressed to INEC, while 24 require action by other institutions and stakeholders, such as the National Assembly, the Nigeria Police Force, the National Broadcasting Commission, the National Information Technology Development Agency, civil society organizations, the Nigeria Union of Journalists, and political parties under the umbrella of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. Furthermore, the follow-up mission will also interact with the National Identity Management Commission.
He noted that the Commission's detailed response, along with the 2023 election review report, is publicly available on its website. He commended ECOWAS and ECONEC for their consistent support to electoral integrity in the region and appreciated development partners. The leader of the delegation from ECONEC and head Liberia's National Elections Commission, Devita Brownie Lassana, while commending the INEC chairman, noted that the visit is a peer-to-peer review on its reports of the 2023 general elections to see how well Nigeria has implemented it as a way of lessons learned.
Peer-to-peer review of our presence here during the 2023 elections, but more importantly, the recommendations that we proffer, which were outlined in a report of our visit here. We've come to see how best INEC has implemented those recommendations, and we anticipate that during our engagement, we may be able to understand reasons for some of the issues that came out of the 2023 elections.
The follow-up mission is expected to engage key institutions, including National Identity Management Commission, as Nigeria continues efforts to strengthen its electoral system. Anita Patrick, Global Television News.
In another development, the Rivers State Independent National Electoral Commission has fixed Saturday, August 30, 2025, to conduct local government elections across the state. The chairman of the commission, Michael Ode, announced in Port Harcourt while unveiling the revised timetable for the elections. The new date marks a shift from previously scheduled August 9, which was set by the former chairman of the commission, led by retired Justice Adolphus Enebeli, before the declaration of emergency rule in the state. Ahead of the National Assembly by-elections, the Edo chapter of the People's Democratic Party has called for the immediate removal of the resident electoral commissioner, Anubom Onuaha. Chairman of the Edo PDP Caretaker Committee, Anthony Eziabemi, made the call during a press conference in Benin, stating that the commissioner allegedly acted in a compromised manner during the last governorship election, leading to a loss of confidence in his neutrality. Meanwhile, The Independent National Electoral Commission has fixed August 16 for the by-elections in Edo Central Senatorial District and Ovia Federal Constituency to fill 2 vacant legislative seats vacated by Monday Okpebholo and Dennis Idahosa. Professor Abdullahi Mustafa says Nigeria must embrace safe and ethical technological innovations to tackle food security and climate challenges in the country. The Director General made this known at a sensitization workshop on genetically modified organism (GMO) for members of Nigeria's Islamic
According to the Director General, National Biotechnology Research and Development Agency, Professor Abdullahi Mustafa says the workshop aims to bridge the knowledge gap between modern biotechnology and religious understanding, thereby enabling informed perspectives that support national agricultural development goals. According to him, with Islamic teachings emphasizing food safety and wholesomeness, it is essential that any biotechnological advancement aligns with Sharia principles of health, dignity, and well-being.
And let the people know that this crop has no harm. Let the people know that this crop is something that when they use is going to bring a lot of fortune in terms of mitigating the problems of climate change, in terms of bringing wealth, creating wealth, because when you use it, you are going to harvest high yield.
Meanwhile, the Director Agric Biotech Department, NAPDA, Dr. Rose Gidado, says the goal of agricultural biotechnology is to increase crop yields, improve food quality, and reduce the environmental impact of farming, ultimately contributing to global food security and sustainable agriculture.
Productivity and health through genetic improvement, disease diagnosis and then prevention, nutrition and then feeding strategies, and then improve farming practices such as precision agri, soil conservation, and then efficient water use. So the goal of agricultural biotech is to increase crop yields, improve food quality, and then reduce the environmental impact of farming, ultimately contributing to global food security and sustainable agriculture.
Speaking on behalf of the Muslim community, the Secretary to the Chief Imam of the community, Abdullahi Nuhu, commended the government agency for the capacity building and the work put in tackling food insecurity in the country.
We will at all points in time support you spiritually.
The high-level engagement brought together religious leaders, scientists, regulators, and civil society groups in a bid to bridge science and faith. Anieti Patrick, Global Television News.
You're watching the live broadcast of News Cycle. When News Cycle returns, Ethiopia hosts the United Nations Food Summit as millions face hunger. Details coming shortly, plus sports and foreign stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is News Cycle on Global Television. Now we go to the business news. The Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project, HYPREP, has received commendation from international and local environmental groups for the progress made in the ongoing cleanup of Ogoniland under its current leadership. The groups say the achievement so far reflects commitment to environmental restoration and community development. Aniete Patrick reports. Apologies, we'll bring you that report in a later bulletin. Now, the federal government may sell the 11 power distribution companies through a reprivatization process if the Electricity Act Amendment Bill 2025 currently before the National Assembly becomes law. The amendment bill, sponsored by Senator Ehinyaya Aberibe, seeks to overhaul the 2023 Electricity Act by addressing regulatory gaps, as it warned that investors risk losing their stakes through share dilutions, receivership, or outright reprivatization if fresh capital is not injected into the sector within 12 months, following years of poor performance and worsening debt crisis. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) has raised its global growth forecast for 2025 to 3.0%, crediting a rush in global trade activity as firms move to beat looming U.S. tariffs. The IMF chief economist Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas warns that the momentum is artificial and driven by distortions. Mukhtar Kasim reports.
In its latest update, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) says global growth will hit 3.0%, slightly up from April's 2.8% projection. IMF chief economist Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas says much of the increase comes from exporters fast-tracking shipments before new United States tariffs take effect, but it warns that this could slow trade later in the year as demand softens.
Well, yes, so we are seeing growth for 25 that is revised upward slightly to about 3% for this year from 2.8 in our April projections. So that's kind of good news. At the same time, inflation is more or less on track, so really it looks great. But as we point out, there are reasons to be very cautious. So first is the tariff shock is in fact not as bad as we were projecting in early April. Why? Well, because there have been pauses that have been announced, and then there have been some announcement of trade deals with a number of countries, and we're expecting to see tariff rates that are lower than what we were projecting in early April. To give you a sense, around 17% for US tariffs on the rest of the world. Back in April, we're expecting something of the order of 24%.
The United States is forecast to grow by 1.9%, while China edges up to 4.8%, aided by temporary tariff pause. Europe sees modest gains driven by pharmaceutical exports from Ireland, but the IMF says tariff-driven inflation and uncertainty remains key risks.
And then oil prices, which have been somewhat declining in the last year and are expected to also continue remaining relatively low compared to their 2024 level, that is a source of revenues for the Russian economy, and that's also weighing down on their economic prospects. So all of these things account for, and this downward revision brings us closer to sort of the medium-term growth projections that we are seeing for the Russian economy. So a lot of the growth.
Although the numbers suggest resilience, the IMF insists that rebound is temporary, shaped more by trade distortion than true recovery. Mukhtar Kasim, reporting for Global Television News.
United States President Donald Trump has outlined a sweeping new trade posture, announcing a universal tariff for essentially the rest of the world at 15 to 20%. The president, who stated this at Tilbury Resort, also revealed plans to introduce specific tariffs on pharmaceuticals. Our correspondent Mukhtar Kasim reports.
Speaking alongside British Prime Minister Keir Starmer at his Turnberry Resort, President Donald Trump says the new tariffs would apply to countries without bilateral trade agreement with the United States.
We're going to be setting a tariff for essentially the rest of the world, and that's what they're going to pay if they want to do business in the United States. Because you can't sit down and make 200 deals. But we made the big ones. We just finished Indonesia. They opened up their country. We just finished Japan. They opened up their country. You know, Japan opened up the country. They were totally closed. They opened up to our cars, even to rice. Rice was a big deal. They would never take anybody else's rice. They're taking rice.
Trump says world tariff would set a blanket rate of 15 to 20%, up from the current 10%, intended to pressure smaller economies into direct negotiations.
Philippines, we just finished. They opened up their country. They were very closed. I'd love to see China open up their country. I just want to be nice. I would say in the range of 15 to 20%. But we're going to be announcing sometime very soon, I think, pharmaceuticals are a whole thing. And the companies know. And drug prices are going to be coming down very substantially in the U.S., very, very substantially.
While the United States and the European Union have reached a tentative trade deal, including a 15% tariff on most European Union goods, like medicines, some branded pharmaceuticals could still face higher duties. President Trump is signaling a tougher, more streamlined trade stance by introducing uniform tariffs and targeting pharmaceuticals, his administration is redrawing global trade lines with major implications for both partners and competitors. Mukhtar Kasim reporting for Global Television News.
On the foreign scene, it has been observed that global hunger is on the rise, worsened by conflicts, climate shocks, and economic instability. In response, world leaders have gathered in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, for the United Nations Food Systems Summit, seeking bold ideas and urgent action to transform the way food is produced, shared, and consumed. Zara Nasir has more.
Against the backdrop of worsening humanitarian crisis in regions like Sudan and Gaza, the Ethiopian capital has become a hub of global dialogue on food and survival. At the heart of this year's UN Food Systems Summit is a single message: hunger is not inevitable, and transforming food systems is a global responsibility. For Ethiopia's Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, the summit is an opportunity to reposition Africa from a continent seen as vulnerable to one recognized for its vast agricultural potential.
Despite progress, the African continent faces mounting challenges. Yet Africa can feed itself and help feed the world. But this requires, first, development financing. Africa needs predictable concessional finance to invest in agriculture, rural transformation, infrastructure, and nutrition.
Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, emphasized the importance of global cooperation that prioritizes local empowerment and sustainability.
Insecurity is therefore, in its every aspect, a political issue, but not only. It is also and above all an economic issue. We would be making a serious mistake if we limited ourselves to looking at food systems through the face of poverty, suffering, and hunger. Food systems are an engine of growth and development, both for the most fragile nations and for those that are economically more solid.
From Addis Ababa, a powerful reminder echoes: in a world where food is abundant, no one should go hungry. The summit is not just a gathering of leaders, it is a call to action, and with lives at stake, delay is no longer an option. Zahra Nasser, reporting for Global TV News.
And in sports, Nigerian top striker Victor Osimhen is set to arrive in Istanbul this week as Galatasaray prepare to unveil the Nigerian striker following the finalization of his €75 million transfer from Napoli. Abdullah Kafuku, vice president of Galatasaray, is expected to travel to Italy this week to complete the transfer. The anticipation among Galatasaray fans is coming to an end, with the club's management ready to bring the world-renowned striker to Istanbul once the paperwork is completed. And that is it on News Cycle. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and StarTimes channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen using the handle @GlobalTVNG. I am Priscilla Obasi. Thank you for watching. Good evening.